Okay.
Okay, cool. So I'm just going to kind of talk about who I am for a second, and then I'll kind of dive into the whole midterm rental potential and possibility and all that stuff. So if you guys look at this property right here, this is the first property that I ever purchased back in 2015 in Modesto, California, which is, like I mentioned a while ago, it's like basically the armpit of California. There's nothing fancy about being here. In fact, a lot of wine is made here. A lot of agriculture stuff is in the Central Valley. And one of the things that I do different is I actually go after the businesses, not the actual like clinicians or nurses that are looking on Furnish Finder. I do not rely on Airbnb. And I'll talk about that here in a second. I'm a big Giants fan. So you guys see this is a picture of me like 10 years ago. I was much more handsome, better looking, and I wasn't growing any facial hair at that point. So Nick, I'm going to get to your point at some point. I've been putting Rogaine on my face for the last 10 years. Nothing's happening. I don't know what's going on here, you guys.
Wow. My fingers are
So,
crossed for you.
so anyway, I'm a founder of a company called AirVenture Hosting Company, where we manage other people's Airbnb properties and short or midterm rentals. AirVenture Academy is where I teach people how to get into the midterm rental space, kind of like how I do. And recently I started a company with Furnish Finder, and that is called the MTR Summit. And that is a summit that we're doing across the US, all over the place. Been in healthcare sales for a long time, then I'll kind of talk about that. I real estate invest, the midterm rental operator, all that other stuff that makes me sound cooler than what I actually truly am. So the reason why I even have this baseball stuff up here is because imagine Airbnb's been around since 2007, right? We know it started off as a company that allowed dudes and women to sleep on a couch. Like that's where Airbnb came from. And imagine knowing that, how big Airbnb is going to be in 2007 to now. And I feel that Airbnb has changed a lot. And it's changed from what it was in 2007, right? And if we're talking about baseball terms right now. I just showed you guys a picture of you, 10 years ago when I was handsome. Uh, uh, and we're in the fifth inning of Airbnb. We're basically kind of rolling through, coming into the sixth inning, if you look at it in baseball terms, again, in innings. And it's changed. Airbnb's changed their algorithm. They're now pushing experiences. They're pushing, unique properties. They're pushing experiential stays, those types of things. So if you kind of look at where the puck is going, where the Airbnb algorithm's taking you, it's in that direction, right? And also, 21% of Airbnb's income over the last 2 years has actually come from 28 days or more stays. So if that doesn't break anything down for you guys, that this midterm rental space is growing tremendously. In fact, it's the fastest growing, it's not an asset class yet, but it will be. It's the fastest growing out of anything in the last several years. So because people are staying longer terms, or that's just how they're lodging. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is, in Airbnb terms, if we look at midterm rentals, if we just think about the concept of where midterm rentals are going, like in baseball terms again, we're just getting started. We're barely just chalking the field. The umpires are not even out on the field yet. The grounds crew's out, like taking care of the floor. That's how early we are in the midterm rental space. And the earlier you adapt to this, the likelihood of you actually building something pretty awesome is pretty high. Again, going back to 2007, knowing how big Airbnb was going to be, even if the midterm rental space is half of that, I mean, that's still a significant, potential to build an actual business. And that's where I'll talk about this a little bit more in detail. So I focus a lot on the travel medical industry, as well as the insurance relocation claims. When healthcare institutions, travel medical market is massive, and I'll show you guys in the next slide how big it is. But the healthcare market includes institutions, which are hospitals. Medical recruiters are the people that specifically go after, these clinicians to go hire, to have privileges to say, I'm a recruiter. I'm going to be looking for Alexis to have privileges in a Detroit hospital. So I would try to recruit her to get her to come over. And recruiters are important. I'll talk about that in a minute. Staffing companies are also, agencies and people that are really helpful to build your business. And all these companies are employing thousands of people all over the place. So there's been a huge gap in healthcare, and you guys all witnessed it happen, right? In 2020 when the pandemic hit. We know that not only the US has a really jacked up healthcare infrastructure, but also globally, there's a huge problem for clinicians in a lot of different ways. In fact, I just read a Forbes article that 1 in 4 clinicians is expected to leave healthcare by 2025. And right now we're actually entering one of the biggest baby boomers are now getting into that age gap where there's going to be more, possibility of illness or, having higher acuity, which means there's, things going on in their bodies and stuff like that, which aging population needs more healthcare. So there's this gap that we're seeing in a lot of ways. And this is going to blow your mind right now. This is where I feel like the midterm rental opportunity is. How many of you guys knew that the healthcare, just the travel staffing industry in the healthcare sector is worth 22.5 billion? Probably nobody in here. It's almost like one of those little hidden gems that not a lot of people talk about. It's a massive industry. In fact, it grew by 25% in 2021 because of the pandemic, and 39% of that growth of that 25% in 2021, which is 22.5 billion, 40% of that came from travel nurses just alone. So that industry just like massively grew. And we saw why, right? The pandemic and a lot of clinicians, and I just talked about clinicians getting burnout, and there's all kinds of different things why clinicians leave. In fact, I don't know if you guys got a chance to hear, I was just on Bigger Pockets episode about a couple weeks ago. Go me, that was awesome. I can't tell you guys how many messages that I got from clinicians, they're either doctors, now is the crazy part, doctors that spent freaking 8 years in healthcare, going to school. They're like, hey, I want to get out of this. Like, this is a way for me to get out. Literally. I can't even tell you guys how many people message me to say, hey, I thought about this before. I never really got into it until I heard your episode. These are clinicians. These are people that are actually active in healthcare right now. And they're like, I want out. We want to be done. So that's one of the things that I just wanted to make sure that I mentioned, that a lot of people are willing, that are wanting to leave. Hang on, my dog is trying to fight my cat. Come on, Lucy, get over here. Knock it off. Sorry. Also, another thing is part of the opportunities is 15 to 20% of the base pay for these travel medical professionals has grown. When the pandemic hit, there was like crazy, they were paying, $20,000 in these like sign-on bonuses and just all these different things, and which that's trickled down now, but they're still doing stipends. They're still doing bonuses. They're still, the pay is better. And one of the cool things about travel medical professionals, how many people in here have Airbnbs right now? If you guys can raise your hand, anybody has an Airbnb? So Nick, just you, Nick? That's it? All right, cool. Well, with the cool thing that I like about midterm rentals is, especially with clinicians, is that they stay 90 days at a time. So imagine having only 4 turnovers a year, Nick, per property. Like, that's freaking amazing. And for me, like being able to manage both, Lucy, get over here. Being able to manage both, it gives me the opportunity to build a business and then also not have to deal with the turnover and the other things that happen with this specific space. And I'll talk about what I think is the best opportunity, especially for real estate investors right now, because I think investors are missing out, or excuse me, real estate agents are missing out on a lot of opportunity right now. And I'll explain to you guys why. So I kind of want to break this down. I have a YouTube video where it's how I analyze the midterm rental market. And I'll break this down for you guys. If you guys have all heard Furnish Finder? Can I get a raise of hands of everybody that's heard of Furnish Finder? So everybody except for Caitlin, you're the odd one out. Oh, Caitlin has too. Okay. Maybe I don't know who the bottom guy is. He doesn't have his name down there. So yeah, whoever you are down the bottom, dude, I don't know who you are. Jason, there we go. Jason's never heard of Furnish Finder. So dude.
Oh, Jason came
Never heard of it.
Just so you know, Jesse.
Came from where?
Yeah.
From healthcare.
Oh, did he really? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I am very much aware of travel nursing.
Yeah. All right. Jason's ready to make stuff happen. So
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So Furnish Finder. Let me go back here real quick. Whoop. Okay, so Furnish Finder is a tool where most travel medical professionals are going to look for housing. So if I'm in California and I'm taking an assignment in Detroit, I'm going to furnishfinder.com to try to look for a specific property that I could stay at that's near the hospital or whatever, whatnot. So Furnish Finder is a tool to kind of check market demand too. Their website is actually, let me see if I can go into the chat box here. Furnish Finder, so www. And as I'm talking, maybe you guys can jump in and take a look at your own market. So furnishfinder.com/stats. So I just put it in the chat box. Hopefully that takes you to the right spot. So anyway, with this website, what it'll do is it'll actually show me what the demand is in my market. So maybe I can actually share my screen just to give you guys a quick little what that looks like. Let me see here if I can pull this up. I'm not great at multitasking on these things, you guys. I just want to show you guys this so you get kind of context of, let's see if I can do a new share. Okay, so where's everybody located at right now? In, or mostly, just say Detroit.
Yeah, so I'm buying one right now in Lansing, Jesse, if we want to use that, Lansing, Michigan.
Okay, LANC.
Lansing.
SING.
Yep, Michigan. There you go.
Okay.
Nailed
Okay,
it.
cool. So housing stat. So this is what we're going to look at. I agree to the terms. Yes. So I'll show you guys kind of like a quick little thingy that I do to update. And this is just going to give me demand. Okay. So just within 10 miles, there's been 7,000 searches, actually requests that people have actually sent a inquiry for a property. And this is where I want you guys to really see this. You see how it says whole units 55? If that's on a supply and demand issue, I don't know what to say right now. So you have 7,200 people that have been looking, and you have 55 entire properties. That's it. Literally, these people have sent messages. Now, if I make this a 30-mile radius, let's see what happens. So we have 7,000. Now we have 10,000 views and 69 whole properties. See how it's still lopsided supply and demand issue there? Nick, if you're getting a multi-unit property, I might want in on that, buddy. So,
Yeah, I'm buying 7 units, and we're about to close it on seller finance.
ooh, I'll take that. So anyway, I just wanted you guys to see this. This is how I kind of analyze a market and kind of get an understanding of it. And you see how right here it shows how much these properties are earning or how much they're making. Out of these 69 properties, 28% of them are over $2,500, which is awesome because I'm assuming that the rental rates are way less than California. So
Right. 1250.
yeah. How much is it? 1250?
Yeah, so we would get $1,000 for the 1-1s, and then we'd get 1250 to like 1300 for the 2 1.5s. So it's almost done.
Cool. So a rule of thumb for me is always a 2 to 3x whatever long-term rental rates are. So if it's $1,000, I'm shooting for like 2,200. You got to add the tax on there, 2,250 and some change, and that's what I would shoot for per property. And somebody like Nick can pick up a property, and whatever the NOI was before, he can literally 2x to 3x what the NOI is, and then sell that building as a profitable midterm rental motel. Like literally, it could be something very similar to that. Especially if he builds businesses with the companies. And I'll talk about that here in a second. So I just wanted you guys to kind of get context on this. And this shows us like how many people are, what companies are hiring there, what the specialty is, and kind of gives you a breakdown of, what that market's actually looking like. But for me, again, I look at the entire units and I look at the total amount of searches. And that gives me much more context to what I'm actually investing in. So, okay. So, level hospital, this is going to be really important. So every single hospital has a level to it. So if you guys have ever, how many of you guys have actually watched like Grey's Anatomy? Raise your hand and don't be shy, guys, if you watched it. All right. Okay, a couple people have. So Grey's Anatomy is a level 1 hospital where you see, it'll show somebody going into an operating room and there's like 10 doctors that come in at one moment. That's what a level 1 and level 2 hospital are considered. They're higher acuity patients. They're sicker. They're able to staff higher patient ratios. They typically have a big ICU. Those hospitals are typically going to have more travel medical professionals that are going to them than like a level 3 or level 4, level 5. And typically these hospitals that are level 1 and level 2, they have over 300 beds in their facilities. So they're pretty big hospitals. So keep in mind, the bigger the hospital is, the more that their emergency rooms will require like a 1 nurse to 2 patient ratio. Really just depends on the state on how that works. There's a lot of mandates the state has that they're specifically have to have X amount of nurses per patient. And that's going to be incredibly important when you guys are looking at, picking a market. Now, level 3, level 4, and level 5 hospitals are more rural hospitals. This might be over where you're at, Nick, more rural hospitals, but don't discredit those hospitals because a lot of the times those hospitals are very imbalanced. And what I mean by that is, let's just say 60% of the employees that are actually employed by that hospital and the other 40% are outsourced to travel medical professionals. So you'll have like a imbalance on the actual hires for those companies and the actual outsourcing that they're doing. So in fact, one of my best hospitals that I have is a level 3 hospital that works with me directly. So don't discredit those. I just talk about the level of beds and how big they are because the amount of travelers that are in and out of there. And one of the things that I look for when I'm buying a property in one of these areas is, am I centrally located? Am I between 1 or 2 or 3 hospitals? Am I between medical complexes? Am I in a C plus neighborhood or better? That's the other thing too, is keep in mind, if you have clinicians that are staying at your property, they need to feel safe and comfortable leaving at 7 p.m. at night and arriving at 7 in the morning. That's typically what the shifts are. They're overnight. So if you're buying in Detroit, make sure it's a market that is going to be sustainable for somebody leaving at night and coming in the morning. They have to feel safe in the property. So really keep that in mind. And I like to buy properties that are 2 bedrooms and above, because it gives me more flexibility. Any intuitive investor is always going to have an exit strategy before they buy a property. I really want everybody to really think about that. Nick, you're probably a pro at this already, but if you're going to be midterm renting, you're going to think about that first. You're going to run your numbers on that. You're going to think about midterm renting to not just travel medical professionals, but insurance companies, companies that are working on construction and whatnot. And then if that doesn't work, you can go into short-term rentals. That's another exit strategy. And if that doesn't work, all ends need to go back to long-term rental, and that needs to make sure you're covering minimum, you're not losing any money. So, those are exit strategies that you have when you're getting into investing. Most of you guys probably already know. And speaking of investing, you see this picture here on the left. This is what most properties look like on Furnish Finder. It looks like grandma's house. It looks like somebody passed away and they left a home to a family member, and they decided to put that up on Furnish Finder. I would say probably 90% of the listings on Furnish Finder look like grandma's house, which is fine for grandma, but everybody else, you don't want that, right? You don't want to have grandma's house. So for me, this is one of my properties on the right here. It did not look like that. In fact, it looked like grandma's house when I picked it up, and we redid it. We put a brand together behind it, and we make the house look like it's, like it's presentable, like it's, we're not competing with anybody else because we're like 5 steps ahead of where everybody else is at. Not only that, but as more people in the short-term rental space are either getting regulated out of their market or they pivot into the midterm rental space, you're going to have that kind of like sexy look that short-term rentals have. Those are going to be coming into the midterm rental space. So the sooner that you adapt that idea or that concept, you're going to have a better opportunity to build in the space because you're already on par with what everybody else will be doing if they're not doing it already. So if you're going to be designing in the midterm rental space, pay for a designer. Nick knows, you get somebody in here that takes care of these, that has an idea. And again, we want to think about our guests at the end of the day. These are travel nurses, travel medical professionals, things of that nature. So add-ons, amenities that are really important. I always allow pets in my properties. A lot of travel professionals bring their pets. It gives you a lot more potential to have, you're not Xing anybody out in that end. One of the other things that we do for add-ons too is we actually have vehicles, and I'll give you guys an example of what this is. I just had a nurse that flew in from what city was she in? Iowa. Flew into Oakland, took an Uber to my property. Once she got to the house, she put her key code in, got in the property, and on the counter in that property is keys, and in the garage is a vehicle that she rented. So not only did she get the car, she got the property. And this is one of the things that's really important, you guys. As you're building a business, you got to think about solving problems. And if we think about Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, all these guys, they're so freaking rich because they solved 1 billion problems at one time. All we have to do is just niche things down and solve problems specifically for these travel medical professionals and these agencies, and you can build a really beautiful business that way just by solving problems specifically. So cars is a really good option to have if you have a vehicle laying around. And I started off with a 2010 Honda Civic. You don't have to have a brand new car. These clinicians don't care. We have cleaning crews that will go in, that will clean weekly or bi-weekly. We actually have our cleaning crew will go in and get groceries too. So these doctors and nurses can put a grocery list together. We'll go buy groceries, put them in the fridge while they're at work, and then they just show up. They don't have to do literally anything. All their food's there, everything's done. They're working 12 to 15 hours a day, 4 or 5 days a week, so they don't have to worry about anything. Amenities are important. Blackout curtains. Nurses sleep during the day. Doctors sleep during the day. You want to have sound machines. Those are little boxes that play white noise. One of the biggest recommendations that I get from clinicians are always an actual old school box fan, because people have weird sleeping habits like myself. If I sleep, I need to have 20 pillows, and I need to have a fan in the bathroom that runs. And I'm pretty sure everybody else in here has some weird rituals for sleeping. Actually, I don't think those are really that weird. They're pretty normal. But anyway, a lot of travel professionals want to have box fans that drown out sound, especially if you're in a larger city. So you really want to think about that as having as amenities. And one of the things that I talked about earlier is I build on actually going after these agencies. I build on connecting with these companies that house the travel medical, that are that are getting the travel nursing agency. So if Nick works for a travel medical agency, I'm going to be reaching out to Nick and saying, hey, Nick, my name's Jesse. I work for, AirVenture Hosting Company. And my goal is to help clinicians come to a safe environment. In fact, we just have a portfolio of 15 properties that are in this space. I work with Doctors Hospital, Memorial, all these hospitals. And I'll say like, three other, companies that are in the specific space on attracting talent, which is what the recruiters do. And I'll build a funnel. So this is exactly what real estate agents do. All the work that you guys do today is going to pay you back in 6 months. Nick, I'm pretty sure you talk about that all the time. So whatever you're doing today, whether that's sending a mailer, that's touching base with somebody through a text, that's following up, that exact same concept is exactly the same thing when it comes to this. Like there's no difference between what you guys are doing in the real estate market and what you're doing by following up with people. In fact, in this business, you make money on not the hello, but the hello again, right? It's that consistency, that follow through that you do to make your money in this business. It's exactly the same thing on the business to business side. So I'll be reaching out to these agencies, connecting with them, talking about how I can help them. I will create a funnel, a sales funnel, where I'll have all their emails, all their phone numbers, and then I'll continue to nurture those leads like I just talked about a minute ago. We make money in the hello again, not the, the initial hello. And then eventually over time, after connecting with all these people, Furnish Finder has something that's called unmatched leads, where there's clinicians that are actually searching for a property. It might not be yours, but it'll show a huge list. I'll actually call every single one of those nurses and just say, hey, my name's Jesse. I see that you're looking for, that you're looking for a property. Have you found one yet? And if they say no, or they say yes, or whatever, whatnot, I'll ask, who do you work for, and what agency do you work for, and who's your recruiter? So once they give me that information, I now have a name of the clinician. I have a name of the recruiting company, and I have a name of the recruiter. So guess what I'll do after that? I'll literally call that recruiter and just say, hey, Nick gave me your information. So now I just turned a cold lead into a beautiful, hot, warm lead. You see how that happens? How many of you guys got an email before and it's just like, hey, are you open to buying, whatever, yada, yada, yada. You're not going to read that email, you're going to toss it. But if I emailed you and said, hey, Mr. Bastianelli gave me your information, is there any way that you and I can jump on a phone call? What's the likelihood of you giving me a call back? Because I just name dropped Nick, and that cold lead now turned into a hot lead. It's an old school sales tactic, you guys. I don't know that other nurse on the other side, but I name dropped her anyway. That's going to give me the opening to that door, which can give me that opportunity to build my funnel, to create my opportunity, and to eventually turn a lead into a conversion. Nick, you see how I should probably be a real estate agent, man?
Dude,
Nick's probably like, I need to hire you, man. So and this is where you can make more money than a travel nurse, like just a standard travel nurse coming to you, because these agencies want to work with companies. In fact, they're the ones that are actually paying for these clinicians to go stay in these properties. So the agency is paying at a higher price point. They're paying for comfort. They're paying for availability. They're paying for you to solve problems. And that's exactly what you do in these phone calls, is you build the relationships, you find out what problems they have, and then you solve them. And you continue to do this for multiple different companies, and you will stay booked all year round. Because again, we talked about this a minute ago, you only need 4 guests a year, but you still have to continue nurturing and connecting with these agencies and building. And this is where I feel the best opportunity for clinicians actually is, or excuse me, for real estate agents. Most real estate agents right now are doing things like very old school. They're still going after every single lead that comes in. They're not trickling down to a specific market. They're not niching things down. And this is where I feel, again, if I was a real estate agent, and maybe I should probably be a real estate agent, I would literally target every investor that's bought property in the last year that they're trying to refinance out. What they bought a year ago and they're getting into today is it's a different shift. They actually have to hold these properties now. They can't sell them because they're going to sell them at a loss. And the opportunity there is for you as an investor to understand what the midterm rental market truly is, learn how to run the numbers for it, understand it. And guess what? I can now go to every single investor and say, hey, here's the opportunity that I have for you. Here's what's happening. I've actually built basically a business that can help you. And here's how I do it. And not only that, I'm able to hold your property. We can cash flow. We can turn the NOI around, and we can sell it for more money. Not only can you sell your book of business that is with the actual property, but you can sell the property together. So in fact, you're building a business outside of the real estate, business itself. So that's where I feel like a lot of investors are missing on the opportunities. And I feel that, riches are in the niches, especially when it comes to real estate, because everybody else is doing the exact same freaking thing, you guys. They're doing the same thing. I watch it every day on Instagram. If somebody will post something up, and I apologize if this is you guys, Somebody will post something up and it'll say market summary for January. Every real estate agent's doing that. Here's the market overview for this week. Everybody's doing that. But imagine being a real estate agent going, hey, investors, here's 2 opportunities you have for you. There's a level 1 hospital right around the corner. In fact, if you're holding a property that is going to be or that you can't refi out of, that you got to hold for the next 2 years, I have a way for you to make money from it. Reach out to me and I'll help you. You become the expert in your market and you don't chase, then you'll start attracting the right people to you. And that's one of the things that I feel that a lot of investors and especially real estate agents are always chasing rather than attracting. And that's where the opportunity lies for me when I look at real estate agents is that specific mindset. Because again, I feel like a lot of agents, and again, I apologize if you guys think I'm wrong here, and I'd like to debate it if you do think I'm wrong, but there's just so much opportunity on that end. So some of the key takeaways that I want you guys to have from this, little 30-minute conversation that I'm having with you. Number 1, I got Fenway Park here. The midterm rental market is emerging. We're not even in the first inning yet when it comes to the midterm rental space. You have a long time to build you have a good runway to build an actual legitimate business. So it's not too late to get into the game. In fact, I think right now is the perfect opportunity. I just talked about diversification. So if you own short-term rentals, you own midterm rentals, you have long-term rentals, it's good to have a solid base of who you can serve. And again, going back to diversification with your, with the other agents that are in your market, with your other investors that are in the market, diversify your portfolio, know midterm rentals, know how to operate them, know how to run numbers on them, because you can serve a lot of other people in a lot of different ways by being able to pivot their strategy for you. And at the end of the day, everything that we do, you guys, in the midterm rental space, it's hospitality. It's not about us. It's about the guests. It has nothing to do with us at all. In fact, if you start putting the guests first and you start putting your investors first, your opportunities are going to come in abundance. It's not about making a dollar now. It's about building things out over time. Travel medical industry market is a $22.5 billion industry. It's going to continue to rise. In fact, I think it's supposed to go up, if I remember correctly on the slide, it was 12 billion more in the next 7 years. So this industry is going to continue to grow despite the pandemic, despite everything else, because we just talked about clinicians leaving and whatnot. And number 4, I just talked about this a minute ago. Relationships, I feel, are the new currency. You are, if you build a relationship, whether that's a recruiter, whether that's an investor, over periods of time, that relationship will pay you in dividends instead of the mindset of, I want to just get paid and make this money right now. Build a relationship, have that relationship over time, and it'll give you so much more in the future. And whether that's you connecting with recruiters, or that's you building an actual investment portfolio with other investors, or being that one person in your market that understands, the concept of this. So that's pretty much it for me, you guys. This is my contact information, my Instagram. I have a YouTube channel where I talk about this stuff in general. So feel free to reach out to me if you guys have any questions or anything like that. But yeah, we can definitely talk a little bit more, Nick. Hopefully that was all right, man. Wasn't too bad.
Dude, you crushed it. I appreciate it a ton. All super valuable information, I think. Important note for everybody, you have a course, and I will send out the link to everybody or Alexis to take care of that after. Yeah, Alexis?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I think I'm good. I mean, I love just hearing how you think about this stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just very valuable for me. Does anybody have any questions in here? Like Rob, I'm sure that probably brought up some stuff for you since you're kicking this off tomorrow.
Yeah, Rob's going to restructure his business now.
Yeah, I have a couple questions if that's all right, Jesse.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
I was trying to type it in the chat, but actually I sent it in the middle of your talk. But my first question is exit strategies for people that aren't nurses. Do other professionals go to Furnish Finder, or is that have you rented to construction workers, for example, through Furnish Finder?
Yep. Yeah, I have rented it. Yeah. So you want to list on as many platforms as you can. The idea and the goal behind this is just getting in front of people. So if you list on Airbnb for 30 days at a time, if you're on VRBO 30 days at a time, if you're on Furnish Finder 30 days at a time, you're going to get to more people. More people will reach out to you. Again, these tools, the way I look at Furnish Finder, it's how I data mine. It's how I grab information. It's not an actual booking platform for me. I just extract data from that. So I look at the stats. I call these nurses. I find out what companies they're working for. I don't even want to book to somebody on Furnish Finder, just FYI. I want to get all that data from them and then go after the actual source. Because the clinicians are And I would be in the same spot, Robert, you probably would too. If I get paid $5,000 untaxed, I want to have the cheapest available home. So if you have your property on there for $2,000, I'm probably gonna reach out to you and say, hey, Rob, dude, I got $1,500. Like, I'm only gonna be there for 12 hours a day. Like, we're gonna be 2 weeks in the month, and you're just gonna be like, shit, all right, man, I'll take it because I don't want to pay the mortgage next month. And that's why I go to the agencies, because the agencies are gonna pay me $3,000 instead of me getting that 1,500. And I'm gonna build a business where they're always gonna be supplying for me. So I'm not gonna have to rely on Furnish Finder. I'm not gonna have to rely on Airbnb. I'm not gonna have to rely on VRBO. I'm actually building my own business that is going to supply me and my family and the guests that we're going to have, instead of me, like, again, chasing the clients that are on, Airbnb and stuff like that. So I think there's two schools of thought. So just think about it kind of on more of the business side of things. And I think a lot of times people with real estate, you buy a property, you furnish it, you throw it up and you expect it to do well. And that's changing. We've watched it change over time. So we have to get way more creative with things. So yeah, hopefully does that answer your question?
Yes, yeah, like maybe I would get in contact with like people who find homes for construction workers, right? If I were to take that exit strategy and then have that relationship with that relocation company, for example.
Yeah. And you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. I don't know who the heck came up with that. Maybe it's around for Easter or something like that. I just thought about that out loud. But like, you don't want to just be like travel medical only. You want to have like multiple different sectors, because if one of them's slow, or say the hospital decides to hire 100%, then you're SOL with your business. So like for me, you go after. Do you have an extended stay hotel in your market? Does anybody have an extended stay hotel that's near them?
We do, yes.
We've got a lot of them everywhere.
Yeah.
Got you. Okay, so extended stay hotels are the largest company that houses corporate companies. They have corporate relocation claim companies. So like, say, I'll give you guys an example of what I did. I drove by an extended stay at 7 p.m. at night and realized that all these work trucks were out there. And I actually took pictures of every single one of those work trucks. And in the morning the next day, I literally called every single one of them, and I was just like, hey, I saw you guys had a work truck out there. Can you tell me a little bit about how you're running your business? So this is a true story. They had 7 guys that were staying. They were building a Dave & Buster's in my market. You guys know what Dave & Buster's, like an arcade for adults. Pretty fun, by the way. So these 7 dudes were staying in a hotel, and the company was paying $200 a night for each one of those 7 dudes. So do the math, 2 times 7. That's $1,400 a night for these 7 dudes to stay. Guess what? I had a 5-bedroom house that can house all these dudes in one spot. So if you do 700 times 30, what is that? 21,000?
Mhm.
Yep, 21,000. So guess what? I can rent my property to them for $8K, save them 13,000 over the next 3 months, 3 to 6 months. So now we just talked about solving problems. That was me driving by at night, taking pictures of all these work trucks, talking to the HR department of that company, saying, hey, I can serve you guys and help you. Here's how and here's why. What are you doing right now? How much are you guys spending? What if I'm able to save you money? Is there an option for you guys to work with me? Guess what happened? Boom. Next day, those dudes were back at my house working. Granted, they did leave a bunch of shit all over the place, and it was kind of a little bit dirty when they left, but that's what you have when you house 7 construction workers.
Still worth it.
So just this is the concept that I want you guys to think about right now. Like, nobody's thinking about business like that. They're not going to be driving by 7 p.m. at night when these dudes are showing up, after they're doing construction, they're done. That's what I mean. It's that you're thinking outside the box. You're building an actual business. You're thinking different than 99% of the people, and you're that 1% that's actually taking action. So have that concept with any business you're in. How do I do something different and better? And I niche things down even more. And that's one of the things that I always kind of try to strive for is I look at a business. How can I make this better? How can I improve it? How can I think outside the box? Everybody else is another brick on the wall. How do I separate myself from that? This is the way to do it in the real estate side. And yes, it does take more work. It's not passive, but I promise you, when you're making 5x what everybody else is, you don't need 100 doors. You need 10 that are going to provide you the way you have. And that's where I want you to talk with your investors about is like, hey, you can get 10 doors that are going to pay you as much as these 50 that you have right now, like literally. And that's where the opportunity lies, especially if you're doing things the right way.
Yeah.
Because that's what investors want.
The other thing, Jesse, which you said, which is so important, is like, I think people get hung up on this mode of operating business and operating in life, like relationship based, as more work. And then so they don't do it. But I actually think this is like a snowball, and it's way more work up front, but then the relationships just like keep the snowball growing for you. So I agree, more work up front, but man, it like super pays dividends in the long term. Like just the relationship tree grows so rapidly, especially if you're providing an excellent service like the car and the groceries and all that stuff. Why wouldn't that company just keep sending you more business and keeping all of your houses full, as opposed to like Joe Schmo who's random online? So
Right. Yeah. Not only that, but you got to care about what you're doing. And when you start caring about what you're doing, people could feel it. Like you guys probably see me right now. Like this is something I'm excited about because not a lot of people know how to do it. And there's a lot of opportunity. People could grow like substantial wealth for them and their families. Like I would rather give than take. And I think that's where you really have to kind of, and this is where I think it's agents or commission based. Like you want to get all these things happening. You want to get paid. But if you kind of re-engineer the way you think about these things and you help people first and then secondary the income, like that'll come. It's just having that mindset that shifts, and it's somewhere. It'll happen somewhere for everybody at some point in your business life or as your career as you're evolving. But once that flip happens, you'll see your business change because you're putting people first and you're serving others, and then that money will come. I know it sounds cliche and it sounds dumb, but I promise you, it's like real. It really happens.
And it's much more fulfilling that way for me. Like life is better as a result of that.
Yeah.
Random note for you about like you going direct. Another benefit of that, like we're trying to do that too. We're putting routers in place which collect our people's information because, like you said, build business. Like I'm not trying. It's wonderful that these people come to us through Airbnb, VRBO, Expedia, and Booking.com, but I'm trying to create a long-term relationship with them. So I'm pulling their data, and then we're building a list so that we can actually build a business where we have like, hey, a monthly newsletter. Here's what's available. Here's what we're doing, so that we can keep in contact with these people long term. So I love that you brought that up. Obviously, we also make more direct too. So there's just tons of layers of benefits there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where the Airbnb market's going. It's becoming you want to book direct, you want to be very specific on your clients. There's a book by Bill Marriott, which is the dude that made the Marriott hotels. It's How to Serve. And one of the things he talks about is like understanding a person specifically. And this is one of the things that I took out of the book that I really loved is back in the 60s, he had built a hotel and in Europe. And a lot of New Yorkers were flying to Europe for business purposes. And one of the things that people did, especially back in the 60s, is like what's one of the first things they do in the morning? People in the 60s, they'd probably have a cup of coffee or some whiskey and read the newspaper, right? Like the New York Times. So Bill Marriott was like, how do I make these people feel comfortable in my location way, 2,000, 3,000 miles away, but still have them have the same concept of what they're doing. So he literally would have newspapers imported overnight from New York to Europe. And somebody would wake up in the morning, they'd open their door and guess what would be on the floor right there? A New York Times, newspaper. And I feel like that's where this market's going in the Airbnb space. It's being very direct. So imagine if I'm able to, Nick, you got to think about this for your hotel. Imagine if I'm staying with you, Nick, and I send you a questionnaire of 20 things, and it's like, what's your favorite Beatles album, or what's your favorite music, or whatever, or whatnot? What's your favorite beer? What's your favorite wine? The second Nick opens that door, guess what's playing in there? His favorite Beatles song. Guess what's in the fridge? His favorite green beer, Beck's, or whatever it is. Stuff like that, where it's very specific to the client, and that's where this industry is going. It's creating an experience for that individual coming. Where, and again, I talked about how Airbnb's shifted over the years. That's where the money's at in these opportunities, is really being specific to a person. So, that's, again, it's niching down and it's being very centric around your customer.
Yep. I have a question for you. So in Michigan, once somebody stays in a home for 30 days, they have tenant rights. And so that gets very interesting for us because then it becomes really difficult to get them out. We can do that, but it's costly and takes many months, especially since COVID. So every time you have a midterm rental in place, are you signing some sort of lease directly with the booking or recruiting play? How is that? I guess I'd love all your thoughts on that, or what you think.
Yeah, so I am actually signing a lease with the agency. So the agencies are actually the lessees. So they will actually, so if Nick works for, Nick Company will actually rent my property from me, not the guest. Nick Company is doing that. Yeah. So, and then the Nick Company is now renting it to Alexis. So technically Nick's getting it and then subleasing it to Alexis. So he's liable for any potential issues or problems. But one of the cool things about what I'm doing in this space, you guys, is most of the people are on assignment. They're on a job. Like they're not going to squat at your house. They're not going to just live there. They're there temporarily and then they're moving on to the next part. So, you know, I always get people asking me this question like, oh, what about the squatters? What about the squatters? Like these folks are not going to squat because they're on jobs, they're on assignments, they're a certain period and they're leaving. So you do get a little bit more of that flexibility. Even if you did have somebody book your property, at least you know, like, hey, they're here on assignment. These are professionals. You know, they're not just going to hang out here. There's licenses on the line. There's all kinds of other things. So, you know, just think about that on that end. You know, you're not just housing a, you know, like kind of like a regular person off the streets. These are professionals that are in the space that don't want to lose any license and are just on assignment.
Yeah. Okay, I love that. That was my big question. Are you just using a standard lease that allows subletting?
Yeah, and that's another thing too, is like don't complicate stuff. Just use a standard DRE license lease and then just add an addendum. Nick, you probably know this already, just an addendum that states that, you know, this agency is going to be responsible or that person is going to be responsible, and they're not considered long-term tenants, even though they're staying for more than 30 days. They're considered midterm rental tenants. So you just kind of protect yourself on that end, and obviously talk to a lawyer and attorney that can help draft something up. But I think a lot of times people overcomplicate it. It's very simple. Just a standard lease and then an addendum that's added to it.
I love it. So easy.
Yeah. Super easy.
Cool. I'm good. Rob, do you have more questions? I don't.
One more big question. So like, because tomorrow I'm getting ready to basically get it listed, getting the photos tomorrow, and then we're moving forward listing it on Furnish Finder after that. But like any other like just operations check boxes, like insurance things, like what do you think are just like the big check boxes that I need to have going into this to make sure that like I'm basically protecting myself and my client and everything else?
Yeah, I would just make sure that you have a lease, that you talk to an attorney and just draft an addendum. Nick might even have one for you, but I would definitely talk to an attorney to draft something up specific on your state. Again, you don't need anything crazy. You're going to use a regular lease, then you're just adding an addendum, throw that into DocuSign, that should work. And then secondary, I would start thinking about building a business on top of that. So you're going after Furnish Finder. I just talked about extended stay. I just talked about how to go after agencies. It's one thing to list on all these platforms, it's another to start calling and building. So I would have that mindset, like I'm going to build, you know, this is your first unit, but I would be thinking big. So by the end of 2023, I'm going to have 7, 8 of these. You want to grow deep in your market and not wide. You want to like be one of the housing solutions provider in that market, so that every time you talk to an agency, hey, I got 7 properties, we're actually going to be on listing 10 more. We want to serve you guys. We want to be your go-to person. So you're a preferred vendor. So my thought process for you would be challenge yourself. You're starting with 1, but really have the idea to have 7 at the end of the year and really build those relationships now, because at the end of this year, those relationships that you build are going to pay you for next year. You know, they're going to be supplying you for next year as you're continuing to grow your portfolio, or again, serving the clients, and you guys are agents. You know, a lot of you guys are agents on here. So you're serving your clients over time, and be that go-to person that understands this stuff. And there's not a lot of literature or anything out on it. It's still really new. Like if you go on Google and you type in midterm rentals or YouTube, like not very many people are going to pop up, but consume all that stuff.
You show up, dude.
Do I?
This is why I know who you are.
Yeah. I'll probably show up, but yeah, there's probably a couple other people that will show up on there too. But just consume that information and really start to understand what the market is and how it works and how it operates, and understand how your market works. Like call the hospitals, call the HR department, see if they're using any companies. You know, watch all my YouTube videos, because it'll give you like a really good idea. Like, here's how I do this. Here's how I put my property together. Here's who I go after. Who's who I talk about. Like I share all that stuff for free, so that people can, you know, again, like I mentioned before, 99% of people won't do it. 1% of the people will actually take initiative on there. That Bigger Pockets episode, I laid my entire masterclass out on there, literally everything. And everybody said I was dumb. Why would you do that? But only 1%, if that's even going to actually do the work. So I'm all about giving and not necessarily asking. I think that it's really important to do that. But the blueprint's out there, you guys. It's for free.